Let me squeeze in here. We'll go ahead and start. First, we want to express our appreciation for you guys coming. We know that it's a concern. I'm the town manager. My name is Shannon Baldwin, and I'm just going to try to facilitate some parts of the meeting. Dustin Waycaster, our fire chief, is going to give a slide presentation, and then at the end, we're going to have some Q&As. So we're going to introduce these folks up here so you know who they are. Probably would like to emphasize that what is occurring out there is beyond the town's authority and resources to manage. And so all we're trying to do is serve as a facilitator and a link for you guys to get to the resources that you may need. Before the mayor left on vacation, we had decided that when he returns, which will be the beginning of next week, we will reach out to our state and federal counterparts and begin working on that angle as well. One of the important things I think we want to try to emphasize is that this is a situation where private property is being affected as well as NCDOT right-of-way. So those are two important things to remember. Introductions, I mentioned Dustin Waycaster. He's our fire chief and emergency management coordinator. And when I mention your name, you'll just raise your hand. This is Dustin. With Rutherford County, we have Shane Dotson, building inspector. We have Frankie Hamrick, fire marshal, emergency management coordinator with Rutherford County. We have John Greenway. He's the assistant fire marshal, emergency management director. And with North Carolina Department of Transportation, we have Jody Kuhn. Jody is with us. Cooney, if you'll raise your hand, Jody. And we have Tim Anderson. He's a division maintenance engineer, District 13. And then we have Matt Taylor. He's the county maintenance engineer. And with North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, we have Rick Wooten. So Rick is senior geologist for geohazards and engineering geology, and he's in the Asheville regional office. With Duke Energy, we have Dan Harris. Dan is the distribution engineer for Duke, and then we have Danny Painter, who's the R&I specialist with Duke. So we appreciate you guys coming today. So now Dustin is going to go through a slide presentation, and we'll follow that up with some questions and answers. I'll have a microphone for the audience, and then we'll ask Dustin to take one of these microphones to make sure the folks with the answers can speak into the microphone. All right, Dustin.
Do you have it out there? Okay. Okay. Thank you all for coming. This evening to meet with us about your landslide situation on Buffalo Creek. Town manager's already done our introduction. The purpose of this meeting is to facilitate communication about what's going on with your landslide on Buffalo Creek. What we found out, we're going to discuss how we discuss what kind of agencies are already involved and what kind of procedures has already been taken. And we'll start pointing us into the direction of what our next steps are. This is the slide location. It's roughly 1,600 block of Buffalo Creek Road, just past the Young Mountain Buffalo Creek Road intersection. The map that you see on the right, everything inside the red dotted line is town limits. Inside the circle is the affected landslide area at this time. This area is adjacent to the Bald Mountain Lake. It's also affected the east and west side of Buffalo Creek Road. So what do we know about the landslide? I'm going to let Rick talk about the depth and the area, we'll let the DOT and the Geological Survey talk about the rate of movement, what they know about the movement. So Rick, do you want to talk about an estimated size we talked about yesterday? Yeah.
Thank you. So this map that you see here is one that we've put together over the last 2 days. So we've been out working on the slide twice, and so we're fairly new to the situation, but this is the information we've been able to put together so far. A lot of the information we got from Jody Cooney and DOT has been very helpful in helping us understand the area that's actively moving, and that's the part that's inside of the red line there. And that, I have to refer to my notes, the length of that is, it's getting close to 600 feet from the east end to the west end. The west end is down towards the lake, so that's about 580 feet, close to 600 feet long. The widest part, which is down below Buffalo Creek Road, that's the paved road you see in the middle of the map there. That is about 330 feet wide. So all total, the active part this morning is about 3 acres. If I've got my numbers right. And so if I understand the depth, in the vicinity of Buffalo Creek Road, I think the incline shut off about 45, 50 feet down. Is that correct? So we know the thickness or how far down the moving part goes is roughly 35 to 50 feet deep at that point. So it's pretty big. It's a lot of material. I don't have a volume right now, an estimate. The three yellow stars that you see there, those are on homes that have been condemned. There's one within the red circle there, and that's actually on the active part of the slide. There's two on the south side here. Those, based on what we know now, are not in the part that's actively moving down the margins of the slide. So one thing to help put this in a little bit of perspective, this is actually an area that's moved before. I think from the DOT records we had going back to the 1980s. The deposits that we're seeing in the landform indicate this is part of probably a large prehistoric landslide that's reactivated. And what's driving it right now is the excessive rainfall that we're having. We're well above normal, certainly in the actual area. I'm being exceptionally large. I think we broke the record in January of this year that was previously held in 2013. And so that is probably the driving factor that's making this chunk of territory move. On the positive side, what we're seeing, just from anecdotal reports, is for the rate of movement of the fastest is probably on the order of maybe inches per day, which is pretty fast. But on the positive side, some of the photo on the really damaging landslides that we work on, we call the workflows, and those are ones that move on the order of 3 miles an hour. So this is not the situation that we're dealing with here. The primary threat right now certainly is the Buffalo Creek Road, and obviously we could have some very damaging effects to homes that are on the active part of the slide. So that's one of the things that the town, local and the county has access to look into, is to map out the area of the slide and start working on some ideas that if it continues to have it, which it probably will until the rain stops, what areas could potentially be affected. And just in order to start getting an idea of those areas that could be potentially affected in the future. And to be honest, that involves a lot of guesswork. It's, in a lot of cases, it's difficult to predict how big this will get, particularly after seeing it 2 days. It takes a long period of collecting information to know how it behaves in response to weather events. So we're just basically beginning that process. One of the things that we are doing is, in our geologic mapping, we are mapping the areas that look like we're involved in the H-landslide, that contain similar deposits that are moving here, and then identifying those areas where actually bedrock is exposed at the surface, where the bedrock. And that's usually, for starters, that's a limit to the amount of size that some of these slides might enlarge to contain. And so it's a first approximation. So that's basically what we're working on right now. At this point, I can turn it back to Dustin.
I'm going to leave Rick's map up there for just a second. Properties that have gold or yellow stars on there, those properties have been condemned. Myself and the county building inspector have deemed those a safety hazard. All three of the houses have significant foundation damage. The basement flooring is cracked and separated, and one house that's over a foot of separation. And then the house on the upslope, and the upslope side is the one star that's up towards the peak of the slide. There's some foundation cracking, and it's on three sides of the home, as well as losing some of the supports for a cantilever deck that's on the rear of the structure. Another concern that we had was that all the homes in the area are on a septic system. So this landslide and this shrinkage and this separation of land is all going to affect those drain fields and that septic system. So the health department's been notified as well, and you may see some of the health department officials going around and evaluating our impact that way. Shane, do you want to?
I do.
Just one quick thing. I don't know if the homeowner of 159 Youngs Mountain Drive is here. Okay. You're the one that I wasn't able to get a hold of there. I did not have a good number, so I'll speak with you after the meeting. You're the house that I just located yesterday. I have the placard in my car. I was going to drive back down and do that on the way home, so okay, so I'll get up with you after the meeting if you have any questions. The other two I have contacted, I think yesterday, and if y'all have any questions, I'll be here. Yeah, you were the one that was kind of a surprise. I think Rick had pointed that out when I was at another house. So if you got any questions, I'll be around. I just want to let you know.
DOT, would you like to comment on any of you guys' findings that we've not addressed as far as the size or the movement?
I don't think in terms of size or moving.
Okay.
Sort of options that we're looking at.
Okay.
Sort of options.
Yeah. That's what we'd like.
That's what everybody wants to know, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot to know, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to reference this map.
Okay.
I'm going to bring that map up there because I didn't know I was coming to such a formal meeting.
with the ability to display or anything. So that meant that I made some copies of just some things we've been drawing and working on. And I'm going to just give them out to you. You guys can hand them around. There's only like 7 of them. So one of them's another overview. Now, it may look like you see things that say potential new roadway on it. That is not something that I'm intending to recommend us build. Actually, it's probably the opposite of that. But it's what I have just run typical numbers on to sort of discuss what we're dealing with here.
You want us to make copies? You want us to make copies?
So I don't know if you've been made privy to the history of this, but in 1974, let me go ahead and say, my unit is responsible for, the other people of the DOT are part of your highway division. They're responsible for administering your highway contracts, your maintenance, constructing things, and I work for what's called technical services, and that's a design unit. So essentially, I'm an internal consultant, so to speak, for the 3 mountain divisions. So we're very busy from Boone to Murphy. Right now. This one had a report made from my office in 1974. It was not on the state system. That was in response to a private homeowner who asked, and at that time, people who were in my position were the most trained geotechnical staff. So they came and issued a report in 1974 before it was on the state system, and they actually moved one of the houses. And I think, is there any way to point on this? I guess maybe with the mouse? Oh, that isn't on this, is it?
You can point on that big screen, but not on this.
Oh, okay. So then
you use this.
Oh, okay. So then you use
Right there in the middle.
Okay.
Button right there in the middle.
Between 74 and 1980. No, 74 and 1980 is where you last forever here, but when I was down here in May and we got around this failed in May. This failed in May. We had some rain at 5 in the yard. Well, I don't know everything that's going on here, but I know everything's just going roadway, so put some pipes nearby, see if we can and so between 74 and 80, at that time back in May, I had gone and seen this really some wall and seen this really weird place. Didn't know what the deal was. So I wondered if they moved to this house. I wondered if they moved to that 1974 report. They moved this house out of that site. They moved this house out of that site. So that's how long it's been. 1980 had now been put on the state system. That's never, or very rarely, engineering permits. So Fairfield, or if you guys have an HOA or something like that, roads like this get put on the state system because you tell your legislature. That's how that actually acts part of our conversation. So you guys have a private road, which is and you could say we want to put that on the state system, and then we would give the property for free to have it upgraded to a secondary road, or you say no, we don't want to do that, and we think the way it is. So that's the process that happens. A lot of people aren't actually familiar with the fact that rural road becomes an SR, state route, because whoever came down through here freely gave the land to do it. And we do that today when we're widening a gravel today, when we're paving a gravel. So that's how that happens. So that's how that meantime, whoever owned this house moved it. Whoever owned this house moved it. I think they didn't like draw a big arrow and go, this is like drawing a big arrow, but I think that's what it is. So they knew this was going on. And they knew it from a 1974 report, and that was a written report to the homeowners association. I have a copy of it. No, I don't have a copy of that. I have a copy of what? I have a copy of that. I have a copy of what record. So that's the deal. So somebody really pulled a good one and got this put on the state system. And so the state's maintained it for us. So the state's a great deal for the community until we learned what we learned in the last 2 months. so now, this amount of rainfall has taken this thing and has run with it. In 1980, the report honestly states that when they built the lake, they think it was about 1968, that saturated. So I don't give cause or blame. And I have no idea if that's what started it. But now it guarantees to keep it saturated. Now, if you look on that long section, it's not the plan view, but it's the cross section. There's a line on the plan view that shows where that's through. And at the bottom left of that, you'll see a dashed line with some question marks. And that means that, and through that, so the failure plane comes out in the lake. Well, I found these old reports after that in 1980. My predecessor, moons back, said it comes out of the lake. And so the lake keeps all of that saturated at the toe. There are many cases where we don't have a landslide going into a lake or river. It's like going to put huge drainage arrays, then draw down the groundwater, stabilize the embankment, and build it back, and that's good. In this case, we don't have that option because the bottom feet of this is saturated. It has good friction, so it's free to keep slowly easing out. And as it does, this isn't one big, this is my theory, in my thinking. This isn't one big, gigantic scoop of a landslide. It's one scoop of a landslide that's been followed by many in the broad context of this big flow that Rick talked about a little while ago. So as the toe scoops out a little bit, yes, the smaller parts just follow. That's why. If any of you have been contacting me and you have about individual properties, one, I'm not going to give you very detailed advice because now this is a DOT because I can't offer that privately. I do that for property rights privately, typically before they buy in places like this. And all I would say is, if you're within the boundary of this and within what Rick's talking about in this slide area, your property, well, we don't know. It's emerging. See, we have new stuff going on now in the last 2 months. With a year of record rainfall, we have all new things going on. Now, for the DOT, I don't typically, unless we were planning this highway, as a new line, my job also is to go through those and build our way out of things, essentially. So, in a case like this, I come and look at the situation, and then kind of go far enough to go, this is practically unworkable in a way that we normally fix it. And this is the main movement area. Well, we don't drill outside the boundary, not yet. That would become part of, if we think we can learn something that's going to solve the problem. And so here, this red line that we have denotes that highest scarp. And that means physically what's on the ground. So if you're ordering this or if for some reason it stopped raining, this turned into a desert, and it didn't rain again for 10 years, you might sit right there in this condition. However, you now have steepened up the slope in the context of this landslide material. It's only a matter of time, like any hole in the ground you do with any vertical thing. Give it enough time, you'll come back and it's falling in. This is just happening on a larger scale than you have seen the landscape in your yard. So yeah, that's that boundary, and that has been added. We just offered this as a shape file because we did. That's absolutely what was moved. If you are around this boundary, and potentially all the way back up, I don't know how far the baseline runs. This area hasn't been mapped like the higher mountain counties, so that program was discontinued a few years ago. So we don't know the extent of those kind of things. Yeah. So once you've resaturated that, this is moved. Now, where we did drill is here and down here near this house. A couple of reasons. We can't figure out how this is moving. It doesn't have this big giant cracks. So there's a lot of stuff moving out of the lake that we can't see. You go to the road, you've got a very clear idea what's going on. You go up below this house and you have a very clear idea what's going on. You go here and you have hairline cracks. So if any of you have been out there over the last month and seen, I'm having that conventionally surveyed, and then I'm having it flown through to detect micro movements. because we have slides like this. This one's a little bit strange because we have something in the middle of it. Now, that's the background and the way I can think to present it right now. So, since I'm designing for DOT, I look at this and I say, at the center line, if you look on that cross-section, the dashed line without the question marks are places we know that it's used. And that has been measured. That's a downhole probe, and we measured that until it broke off right there. And so there it's 40 feet deep, and there it's 50-something deep. Maybe I have this backwards. I'm not looking at this backwards. Yeah.
Why you have this up? How come the red lines don't come around to encompass the two yellow stars where your house is in down? Are you saying that the only activity is in the red area only?
Right.
Those houses are just affected by osmosis?
At the time that we drew this, those are the physical breaks where we could absolutely say that is where the slide is.
Okay.
And if a house is touching this or like within 10 feet of it, that's an immediate response.
Okay.
They need to have an immediate response. Over time, this will houses can start to collapse into the hole. Okay, so you've overbalanced, you've taken a landslide out, and that doesn't mean that all that magic stuff went away and you're sitting up here, unless your house is sitting on rock, and it isn't a rock slide, then if you have soil all around, and in this case, there may even be big boulders that aren't rock intact that you see in your yard and go, oh, I got rock in my yard. That's a landslide deposit potentially. So I don't know the decision they made with the stars. That's for me, once again, I have to explain that delicate situation where I work for the highways. And while I do have to know all of these other things, I'm not going through and doing properties like specifically line by line.
Okay. Thank you.
So yes, anybody around this thing, you may start to see things move, especially if it keeps raining. So based on those drawings, which I'm sorry I didn't bring to have that to put up here, so not a very good presentation on that. This means that we can't practically rebuild this location. There are many times where you guys are completely familiar with driving along and seeing us rebuilding an embankment and it slid off the road, as if the road were up here, and we lost that. And so we go right down here and steepen this up and put in a wall or put in rock or something like that and somehow ease around this issue. Maybe it's being cut out by a stream or something like that. When we're down here at the bottom, if that slide is coming out at the edge of the highway, as we have in Girton, where you can see this happening right now, so where we have the highway down here, and Girton is also a nightmare. That's proving to be a terrible fix, along the lines of everything we dig out is falling back into the hole, and it's creeping forever up the mountain. So if we're down here, then we can do something. We can buttress it, dig it out. If we're in Pigeon River Gorge, I'm anchoring it, whatever it is. When we're in the middle of it, and we don't know how far it could potentially creep back, but the prediction is can go pretty far. Then I have to look at what's it going to take to get a highway back through here, or not. Not if it's practically possible, we realign it somewhere. So that's where I'm at, and that's what I've recommended as the consultant in-house to our division who's responsible for putting your stuff out there. They count on me to give them the best recommendation. Now, in this case, I run it as if we were going to try to fix it. So this will be a little bit difficult to explain. So when you see on the drawing I passed around the section, it says potential new roadway up on the right. That's just something that I put in to run numbers to get a basis to start anywhere. And all the prices that I'm using, that's this. And so the prices that I'm using come from the things that you see us fixing right now, everywhere. And if you go further west on the other division, they've got it much worse, so there's that. So I ran on the plan sheet, there's just a curved set of lines up at the top, and all it is just two lines I showed to show where I was measuring a roadway. And the reason I put it up there is, as we climb the mountain, most of the time, we're getting shallower in the deposit. So where I'm digging right now, we just can't dig that deep. What we will end up doing is that this has a very low profile for a slide. Okay, it's quite different than a high energy area like the gorge. So up there where I show that typical, I actually show an excavation line that's steeper than our existing landslide. That right there means that unless it's just not raining for 6 months, if we actually try to do what I ran these numbers on, it physically wouldn't work. It would be doing what Girton's doing to us, trying to put, because I've got to get down below those dash line and get in a foundation. In that case, I'm gonna build it out of rock. And that's the cheapest, most straightforward, dumb fix that the DOT does, is to put masses of rock in front of or under things, hopefully well-founded, so they don't become a future problem to build out of. So that's what I would do here. Also, it lowers my footprint, steepens it up. If all of that is halfway understandable, and by the way, ask me questions as we go along, if you have them, because...
The caveat is if it doesn't rain anymore.
Right, yeah. What I'll say about it not raining anymore is, whether you believe in climate change or not, you're still gonna have to deal with it. And so in my career, which is 26 years of doing this kind of work, we have Francis and Ivan started in 2004. Those were record peak events, like the washout bridges. And they caused a lot of slides too. And then we had 2013 as a year of record rainfall. Now we have 2018 as a year of record rainfall. I'm just hunkering down and assuming those are our new design criteria, basically.
Let me break in just for a second.
Sure.
You asked for, over this one. And you asked for folks to ask questions, and we'll do that. I'll make sure we get a microphone to you so we can get your question recorded as you ask it, and everyone can hear it.
All right. So now here's the next part where I'll move really quick, and you can ask questions about it. I just wanted to give you the background of the numbers that I'm running. So first of all, if you're out in rural Rutherford County, sorry, I have lots of projects right now. If you're building out in rural Rutherford County and you want the state to come and put your gravel single-lane farm road on a system and it has some cuts and fills and goes next to a stream, that typical price for this area is about $750,000 a mile to build. Interstate's $10 million, for example. So right there, that says that if I came in, which I did in May, remember I've already been here and failed in the last year. So I just didn't see, wasn't worried about the problem at this scale at that time. The road had set down. I had been to where I said I saw this house moved and there was a big rock wall, and I saw all of that. And I saw water coming out of the ground. I said, well, let's just move the drainage through. Now that wall and that whole area is completely underground. So it went bigger, okay? But I've been here, and we spent good money here, and just didn't see the problem at that time. It wasn't that big.
I have one question. My house not shown in the head scrap area. There's no solid.
You're there?
Yeah.
Yep.
It doesn't show that I'm in the head, but the scrap area, that's away from it.
That's right.
Yeah, Jody, I can address that a little bit, maybe?
Yep.
Oh, good, I'd like to meet with you after.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Might need to address it altogether.
Yeah, let me just, if I could say it now, maybe just help answer some of those questions. Yeah, so the two stars that are south of the red line, you know, we found those homes to be heavily damaged and contacted the county. They looked at it. Right now, it does not seem like those houses are directly part of the active area of the slide. Okay. They're outside of that. They are on the margins of the old slide. They're on steep ground, and some of that ground is perhaps starting to move. But we haven't seen enough evidence to make a physical connection to draw a line with cracks from the part that is moving to those homes. But that's kind of the situation there. So I hope that helps explain it.
Conversation also help both of us. Joe, do you know where you want
What's that?
it?
No.
I'd like you in also.
Oh, what's that?
I'd like you in on this conversation afterwards also.
Oh, sure, yeah, no problem. The engineer part of me has to go deep on numbers right here for just a second. So there's about $750,000 per mile to widen out to state standards, a regular road, if you put it on the system now. So for this length, that would be about $55,000 we would spend to repair it. Now, on that plan sheet, I've just drawn a big curve on it. Okay, those double lines, they're not even labeled. Like I said, I wasn't planning to present in this way. So that's just me saying, here's what happens if we went near the top of the slide. I don't believe in that either, but this is an example. So the cross-section shows what we would excavate, and we'd excavate even steeper to get down to what I think will be good material. And that has a price to haul all that off. It has to go somewhere. And then we fill it back up with rock. And so for this section, that is, the haul off is $1.72 million, and haul back in for the material at the same prices. We'll have a buttress and curtain. You'll see this happen. Then bringing that back in is $1.9 million at those prices, and that's $3.65 million for a 600-foot long section. That does not include engineering costs, planning costs, alignment costs. That takes at least 3 of the houses, so you're going to pay that. And that means that the excavation that would get us a safe working route to build back into, I don't even believe that would stay there. That excavation is steeper than the slide material itself right now, which is actively failing. So that's one example. The other example is to put a big gigantic wall in there. And by big gigantic wall, it would be the biggest that we would have built of its type. We built one similar when the embankment washed out below the tunnels in Pigeon River after 2004. So that was a $13 million wall there. But bigger and a little bit more challenging going through rock down there. But this one, there's an equivalent wall that holds back the town mountain of Cincinnati that comes to mind, and so I have used those specifications. And that would end up costing about $2.2 million. Now, the other part of that is that it has huge tiebacks into the mountain. The DOT normally acquires the property in which we have tiebacks. So if you go underneath a honeycomb wall on an interstate exit, you'll notice that that's very often below the ramp, and we own that. So if something goes wrong with it, we can go back in and dig it up or fix it. This would all be running back under all the houses. So that would either be a permanent easement of which you would drill a water well through one someday, or somebody would know. And so that's, like I said, that's why I say I throw out these two for those price comparisons, because those are about the only 2 options we would have if this were even marginally well behaved. That's the kind of costs we'd be looking at, plus right-of-way costs. And then I haven't, we would pave it, build the subgrade. I haven't included the drainage, all the normal road things. So it would be another $500,000. Yes, sir.
Could you bridge it?
I've thought about that, and I've thrown that out to them, and I have not priced that. All of these options, if we bridged it, that would require, then I would go in and get very specific with the investigation like we do any bridge or structure like that. So at this point, if we bridged it, once again, I would recommend we climb higher in the slide, because you can just see by its nature it would be narrowing. At that point, I would come in and drill this specifically with that intent. And that wouldn't be to monitor movement, that would be to design a foundation. So it would be something that would take a serious lateral load. But those are out there. Yep.
If this is a water-based product,
yep.
Flow of water, are the ridges there on the mountain to turn it from going over to another valley? You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah. So at the point, I don't know how far Rick's mapping has gone up, but like you have this resistant ridge, debris flows and landslides themselves, they're hand in hand with where water is. So it's often that the old landslide deposit is where the spring and the moss covered rocks are too. So where you see this old landslide deposit is kind of necessarily sort of where groundwater formed its drainage and has caused this to collapse over the eons. And that's what happens here. This is somewhere like Pigeon River Gorge. It does a little bit more steep undercutting, so it really offsets and makes steep faces that then become unstable.
So if you're, let's say, quarter of a mile, if you're a quarter of a mile away,
yeah,
we shouldn't have to worry about this slide growing and half the mountain collapsing.
No, not if, I mean, once again, there are debris flow deposits that start way on the peaks. So back in last year in Tryon, this happened, and that was a homeowner death at the bottom, and that came from that far away. So to the extent that you have these, I don't know, like I said, this hasn't been mapped that way, like some of the far western counties have.
Plans to do any more research and see how far this is?
That's a political thing. So Rick's group does that, and their funding comes and goes with every election. I won't speak for him. I'll just put that out there. So his program for doing that was discontinued back in the middle of the recession sometime for specifically that kind of work. So
if we get folks to speak in the microphone, we're recording this.
yeah.
With all the costs involved, does FEMA help out with this for us?
I don't know about FEMA's. I don't know about FEMA's relationship in all of these. Like earlier last year, I mean, we could talk about that forever, but we had a lot of FEMA sites that I have to work up as an engineer of record. They turned them down. And some they're coming back in with, and it's a case-by-case thing, and I don't really know how they work. And we like to end some of our funding off FEMA stuff, but we also end up not getting that. So I'm not sure about that. So what I would say to anybody personally, and I'm just going to speak for a certain level for the department, is I wanted to let you know that this highway got put on the system as a political decision, and what can happen with it next is a political decision. It can also be your decision. I'm tasked with telling them how to put this road through here, and I'm telling them they can't practically do it. Now, the other options, bridging, realigning, going in other places, it is worth your community, Fairfield, the town, everyone, to get together and look at all of your options here. We will take them, because as it is right now, a lot of the area is served. And you have a private road there that people will use unless you gate it. And I don't know the traffic habits of your area. I don't know anything about that stuff, but it would be beneficial if you look at, I mean, this is outside the box thinking. And what I need to remind you is that the design engineers almost never actually, when you go, why did the engineers put it there? It's almost always a human decision. If the world was an engineering decision, things would look kind of different, but that's not how.
So Jody, I've got a question for you. In a situation like this, you just said it's worth it for Rumland Bond, for owners, town, to get together to try to explore the options.
Yeah.
Is that something, meetings you guys would call and facilitate?
If we decide that we want to do something, it absolutely has to go that way. And say we were building new through here, and it was on the TIP, which you can look up online, our Transportation Improvement Program, like I-26 in Asheville, or a new bypass at 221 around Rutherford. Those are things that we come in, set up as corridors. That has the political will behind it. That is a project that's been presented, and we design it as described, okay? So that's something that would be brought to us, Board of Transportation, a political need, legislative need, something we see as we want to improve, we have a purpose and need to not be on this rural 2-lane anymore, let's do a 4-lane bypass. One of those things would drive it. And so we don't tend to come to you and go, we're wanting to do this to you, like as the engineer, like at our level. It comes from above. And so essentially you guys are the above. So if you went to Raleigh and your legislature procured $20 million for you and said, engineer make this work, then I go, okay, we're gonna haul the entire thing off and dig out 1 million yards and put it back with rock for $20 million and build it back. That's how that would be the directive that came from above. But short of that, we want to solve the current problem, and we're stuck with what we own. And this isn't a situation in which I can just, like, I don't say, because I designed this and this bridge is going here, that we're now going to condemn it, and that's the way it is. We're not in the position of, I'm not in the position of condemning property for this. Typically, a lot of my slides for Forest Service land, I work with the agencies and people like that and work out exactly how much land I'm getting from them. And as I explained at the start, when we improve a highway like this and somebody asks to be on the state system, they're giving the land for free. So that's where we're stuck in a process, legal limbo about that.
So what you're saying is that you don't have a normal process to address this.
That's right.
So what we have is a leadership vacuum and a process vacuum. And we have to figure that out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's because you're an emergency. I mean, nobody has died here. There's property threatened and already condemned, so you see it evolving. But the good news is that nobody has died here, and something didn't come unexpected from above, and that kind of thing.
All right. So I'm Tim Anderson. I'm from the division office up in Asheville. Rutherford's one of our counties, and there's a couple things when it comes to the road. One of the things that Shannon mentioned, we typically would do a public hearing of some sort. This is a very unique situation. It's going to take a very unique approach to fix it. And a couple of things that we had talked about prior to and need to be addressed. First, when you look at this swath, that little width is the DOT right of way. Oh, there we go. And as you can see, the area is much bigger, and we've got homes with issues there and there. As Jody mentioned, we can't drain it because the drains we would put in would be in the bottom of the lake. So, 40-foot deep. So there's an issue there. If we were to put a bridge, which has been considered, that doesn't stop this from moving. That's the whole thing. There are multiple issues. Issue one is there's an active slide that's well outside of anything that DOT would normally address. If we were to toe up our slope, like Jody mentioned, we would do the big dump fix. If it was sliding down to us, we would just keep scooping it up and hauling it off, which is our two most common uses of our equipment. And then our issue here is no matter what we do, right now we're along for the ride, just like y'all as property owners. And that's why we brought this to Shannon and to the county, and so we would like to talk to folks and let y'all know what was going on, because it's well outside of what DOT normally deals with. With that, that's one of the reasons that we've had this discussion about having a meeting to talk about, do we move the road? Do we put the road on the other side of the lake? Do we need to replace the road? These are things that have to be decided, but there are two issues. Issue number one, the slide, which is active. Y'all have seen we're still dropping. The roadway dropped another 2.5 feet over the last month. And then issue two is that we tie a road back. That part of it is actually a further conversation. That is not the immediate issue. So I just want to make sure we're focused on the fact that there are at least two issues here. Number one, there's an active slide that's well outside of DOT. And then number two, after the slide, after we figure out what to do about that, whether it's a FEMA type event or FEMA type participation, working with the lake or something like that, then we can worry about tying the road back. Right now there's access from both ways. There's emergency services from both ways. Yes, sir.
Back in the 70s, when this happened the first time. Here. Back when this happened the first time in the 70s, it dropped a lot more than what it's dropped now. If I remember correctly, it was down about 15, 20 feet back then. and the land on the other side of the lake split, the bank over there, inside the grade on the west side of Ball Mountain Lake. Has that been inspected to see if that's going on now?
You're not going across the lake, have you?
No, I tend to look at things that are related to the highway, and so.
But it actually, there was a split on the other side of the lake, up a bank, probably 50 foot up a bank on the other side, in a straight line almost from where that slide's at now. And I just wondered if the state had been in there and looked at that to see if, how far that's gone this time.
The DOT, unless it's in the context, overall context of a project, we don't go look outside of, usually our right-of-way, because anything outside of that is a legal entanglement. And so we try to solve our problems within the limits of our right-of-way if we can, the existing, and only in extreme cases will we look out or look at, condemning buying of the property. Now back then, you're saying that had slid into the lake, or it had a...
Yeah, the road had dropped down probably twice the depth that it is now.
Okay.
And on the opposite side of the lake, over there, there was a bank, which right now is in behind where the timeshare units for that, over there in West Lake Drive. And it actually split about 50 foot up the bank over there. It went all the way across the lake and up that bank before it stopped.
Yeah. That was another, that's any information like that we like, because part of my outside of the box thinking is the one part of the property here that nobody has a house on is a lake bed. That's an option to build a highway through. So, just anything like that, I'm just putting that out there as you go. You got houses, you got tenants, you have past colloquial information about slides that have happened that are tied to this one across the lake. We won't know that. We don't keep.
At that time, there was no home above the slide. They were all below the slide. One house down there had to be moved over to one lot back at that time. But the actual split went all the way across the lake to the other side.
Yeah, that's stuff we would, now that I know that, if everybody came up and said, oh, we're going to drain the lake, or fill it up and put all new property there, or allow a causeway across it, or something like that, and that's when I would look at that, because that would be the new alignment that I would be planning for. So. Oh, yeah, Tim brought up, and has started that break again, and I know that it's confusing for people because it seems like we have, and it's true, I look at properties like this all the time privately, and but that's specific to somebody buying it, something like that. But for DOT purposes, we will always look at what gets our roadway section through to serve the purposes of the road. And we will not be looking to shore up anything outside of that area. We won't be looking to solve a bigger problem other than what it takes to make the road work. So that would spiral into a whole different level of responsibility for us. So there are many times, like, private folks who have been hired to look at some of your houses here, they've called me and said, oh, do you know this? I'm like, then inform your client. There's not anything I can do about that. But we will always, if you're talking to us, it's just our purview to only deal with things wherever we need to put the road. We'll always be thinking that way, by the way, if you're talking to us.
Since this, we know that the slide is where it is right now, is it the landowner's responsibility to go in and do testing to find out if they're in danger as well? Or is this a town problem that they're going to test and maybe expand the test drill sites?
I don't know about that. If I were private landowner, I would be, but I happen to be in the business, so that's a difficult question to answer. I automatically go, if you're planning something then at this point could ask about it. I think this property owner is planning something, and I recommended they get a geotech report for that. Just to check, and they will be, once again, that's going to be difficult because a lot of geotechnical engineers don't work with landslides. Working with landslides is very risky, and a lot of engineers don't do it.
Rick, is there something you'd like to add to that? Question was, on private property, whose responsibility would be to test?
Well, yeah, in terms of the work that the Geological Survey does, you know, thank you. You know, we're a state agency with limited resources, so we don't have any drill rigs or ways to test beneath the subsurface. What we do, and what we're doing now to work with the county and the town, is actually do mapping to get some idea of those areas that are currently being affected and get some notion of where, if this slide continues to expand, what areas might be involved in that. So I think Jody's answer is, if you want, you know, specific recommendations about what to do on your property, if you're considering some sort of stabilization, or that would be the purview of a consultant. So our primary interest right now is helping folks understand the type and magnitude of the problem. Public safety is basically, you know, that's what we're most interested in. So that's kind of where we are in this situation.
So we would be looking to the state and the feds to help in a situation like this. It would be beyond the town's authority and resources to test on private property.
So how many ore sites did you test?
We tested the one in the center of the road and the one directly. Let's see, I did get a point for this, didn't I? There. And there.
Okay.
If you look on that plan sheet, I think it's drawn on there, but there should be one there and one in the middle of the road.
Got a question for Jody?
Yeah.
Excuse my voice. It appears that this is spreading to the right, your red area, but it's narrowing. Is there an inference that can be made from that?
Yeah.
It might be reaching a conclusion.
That's right. That's why when I gave my scenarios that I gave the cost estimates, I necessarily am climbing higher to get out of it, because ultimately you reach the ridge that is unbroken.
Okay.
And I would build a highway up there, except that would be like climbing probably Chimney Rock or something. So okay. we run into the ability to climb with the roadway and still meet standards too.
Got a question on this side?
Yep.
So right on the red line, which is a ridge, do you think that's the ending of the slide?
Right now I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we produce this red line, and that's me saying that's the immediate deal. This over here, I haven't had time to map it, because once again, I was more interested in getting this instrumentation and seeing the depth of this thing. If it was shallow, I'd dig it out and build a new road and get on with it. Happens all the time.
Got a question on this side?
Yep.
Jody, I own the property right at the head of this thing.
Is that one?
No, go on up right there.
All right.
On that property. At the current rate that things are moving, I guess I'm trying to figure out, I've hired a geologist and I've got a geoengineer looking at what we need to do and spending $100,000 to $200,000, that's what they've said, to try to stop this. But at current rate, how much time do I have, or do we have in this? Because I don't want to go and spend a couple $100,000 and something happen.
So as you're creeping up and you're very unbalanced right there, okay? We don't know if this is this historic information that I just got right here, where he said in 1974 this set down 15 or 20 feet. That's more than we're seeing now. So as we go along, I'm discovering more memos, and it turns out that there's a very long history of this. I don't know the answer to that other than putting those pieces of information together and going, does anybody remember what this looked like back in 1980? Had it even broken yet? See, that's the longer timeline you got to look at. So if all of this started moving and what he was talking about across the lake occurred back in '74, and all of this looked like unbroken forest. See, this toe is still saturated. Once again, I'm not saying the lake totally caused it, but my predecessors thought that it did. So once it... Well, then you put that together with, before 2013, 1971 was our year of record rainfall. Now, I don't know about down here in foothills. It's a western region thing. But, so there's part of the timeline. And the other thing is, if it rains again this year like it did last year, we're sunk. I mean, I already have things failed everywhere. And that makes your timeline shorten up very quickly if we keep this same weather climate pattern. So that answer is, you're putting together, you know, like I said, an observation from 30, 40 years ago, and then starting to apply it to another year of record rainfall and then another. And the fact that I walked away from this back in May going, I know that that's slumped up there. I saw it. But I had no idea it was in the larger context of a slide, because there was a rock wall right there intact that looked like it was 40 years old. That's the kind of information I put together and go, yeah, I don't need to investigate any further. I see things are sliding, but this rigid structure has been underneath the highway for 40 years. So I don't look longer than that to come up with a solution and move on most of the time. So right there, yeah, I'd be very concerned, and you need to get that further, like the neighborhood. Once again, it's a communal effort. It will cost money. It's not a bad idea to get your geotech to go on and reliably map the rest of this and give you that kind of hazard assessment. Okay. If I wanted
to say this property,
yeah, yes. Right there. So if I weren't involved with the DOT, that's exactly the sort of thing I would do privately. I do that, but I don't do that in this case.
Any other question for Jody you'd like to ask? Maybe as we move forward with the rest of the slide presentation, there'll be other questions that come up. Dustin, if you want to.
So I hope that answered some of your questions about some of the properties that are involved, the area and the depth of what we're dealing with. I spoke with Dan just a minute ago that those homes that the power and the service has been removed, Duke Energy, we contacted them because the actual service lines going to the structures were being pulled away from the structures due to the stress and foundations cracking. Except for the 159, the meter box and everything was still intact, but the foundation was starting to separate. Yeah. So that was done for a safety issue, and Duke Energy was contacted. They pulled the meters, and we dropped the service lines to those structures so it wouldn't continue to pull on the feeder line that parallels the roadway all the way up Buffalo Creek. And the DOT engineers need to come in and evaluate the pole structures that parallel the roadway. And I'll let Dan explain that process on how that happens.
I'll bring the microphone over if you want to come. That's fine. Maybe the
Right now, as far as Duke is concerned, we're in a reactionary state right now. I'm gaining information that I wasn't aware of before as to everything that's happening at this point. So what we're looking at right now is generally we follow the DOT right-of-way. We're not generally on the right-of-way, we're on private properties. So right now we're looking at how to stabilize the situation to keep everybody energized, but also in the background we're looking at possible reroutes. And if you're looking at that drawing, we're looking at potentially going up that other street or finding other avenues if we need to. So basically, in those situations, we have to depend on the property owners to help us out because we are not encroached on the DOT. We depend on the property owners to allow us to do this, to keep everyone energized at this point.
So Dan, you said, I think Dustin may mention it too, but correct Bruce, that is a main feeder or feeder line that runs
yes, sir.
Through that area.
Yes, sir, it sure does.
The meter was removed, but I'm still connected to the house because we have no pulling of the wires, is that correct?
Yes, sir. At this point, I'm not familiar with your particular location.
The meters were pulled and the service line was dropped as well because of the foundation being compromised.
Okay, but it wasn't pulling the wire at the time?
Not at the time, but it was on the verge. It could be right now, but yeah.
So one of the reasons we asked Duke Energy to come would be because of the feeder line through this area, it's going to affect the facilities that they have the power on, could possibly affect those. So you're looking at reroutes, Dan, you're looking at possibly other things, you're depending on DOT, just to restate.
Right now, what we're looking at is trying to find out exactly what DOT is going to do because we do follow the roadway most of the time for access. And the information that we're getting is we're not, I mean, you know, at this point, we're not sure what they're going to do. So now we have to explore other options. And in saying that, we do depend on the property owners in the area to help us out. So, you know, we, not saying that our hands are tied, but it's a symbiotic relationship here that we need to work together to take care of what we need to keep everyone energized.
I have one more question. When was my power full?
Yesterday. Yesterday evening.
Any questions for Duke Energy about plans or what they're planning to do or process?
If the road, well, the road's gonna have to be rebuilt at some point, but are y'all gonna still put power lines or the main feeder overhead, or can you bury them underground so that we don't have to fight it with the trees anymore?
That's something that would be to be determined. We can't make that determination at this point. But if we have if the material is moving right now, there's no way we're going to put it underground at this point. That's a futile effort at this point.
Well, I'm talking about when they actually do the actual repair, when they put the rock in and all that instead of the poles overhead.
I can't answer that question because I don't know what's going to happen.
Got it.
Anything else for Duke Energy? Thanks, Dan.
Right now, the highlighted properties are the homeowners that have been notified of this meeting. This is a preliminary meeting just to get you guys informed and to be a link between all these resources and what you guys are facing. So all these properties that are highlighted are not affected by the slide per se, the actual landslide, but you will be affected by extra traffic in the area as they go around the detour. So
is this going to be available on your website, this presentation, where we can get these maps?
We can post these maps. We'll have to secure one from Jody in the DOT, but we can put this on our website.
Yeah,
yes.
we can put all the maps on the website. We get copies.
Do you have numbers, house numbers of the most, I don't know what direction that is.
The north. So yes, we can get that information for you. We can also get the parcel number, so that way you can look it up on GIS what your parcel number is.
Okay.
Okay.
I just bought a house here, Right, a week after the road fell through, so I'm trying to figure out if my property is on there.
Okay, all right, we can do that for you.
One question, what's the timeline for the next step, whatever that next step is?
I think right now, currently, the landslide is still moving. It is very unpredictable. We were up there today, this morning, just investigating some new areas that have opened up in the area. So that's the determining factor. So
Where are the new areas?
the new areas they were highlighted on the map with the dotted red lines, but they have opened up a little bit more and a little bit more separated. But this is currently moving. As we're sitting here talking, there's land moving up there. And it's going to continue to move until it settles in place. Is that correct, Rick?
Right.
Yep.
Let's defer to Rick on that.
Yeah. So this is the next slide was, can the landslide be stopped? And I'm going to defer to Rick on that. He's way more expert in that field.
Well, I'll start, and it won't be long before I hand the baton to Jody on this one. Yeah, I think Jody set the stage pretty well. I mean, for this to stop, we're going to have to get into, on a natural means, we're going to have to get into an extended dry period. And even then, it's not like you hit the car brakes, right? Because once these things get moving, they tend to be self-perpetuating. And so if the rain stops tomorrow, that doesn't mean the landslide is going to stop tomorrow. It might slow down. The other option would be to drain the lake and put in drains down there, and that's probably falls outside of what's realistic at this point. Short of, the possible DOT fix to dig up a large area and replace it with rock, that's one means. It's not going to be cheap, and as I understood Jody, that would certainly have probably impact on private properties to get that amount of land involved. Is that safe to say, Jody? Okay. So right now I can't say that there's I don't know of any inexpensive practical way to stop this much earth from moving. The best we can do right now is try to understand it a little bit better, understand its behavior, and see what happens with your community actions, and then talking with your political representatives and private consultants about ways that the community can deal with it, or as individual property owners can. We're going to continue working on it, and we're working on a number of other large landslides in Hibbert and Rutherford and Polk counties as well. So I know it's no small comfort, but you're not alone in these situations. There are a lot of others, larger ones, some on the order of 15 acres, 5 times bigger than this one, that are affecting homeowners and property owners and those sorts of things. So it's a very difficult time for a lot of folks. But I think the outlook for this stopping right now isn't very good if we stay on this weather pattern. So.
Anything you need to add, Joe?
That answer your question? All right, and I think Jody hit on this about what we know about Buffalo Creek Road and our options there as far as looking as alternatives. So what are our next steps? For the staff and the elected officials, we'll be contacting our state and federal counterparts and see where we can go from this point. It is, as Jody was saying, it's a very political move for us, and that it involves the state maintaining right-of-way and private property. So the town is right now acting as a connection, a link between these resources that are available to you guys and to the rest of the communities.
So calling a meeting like this and sending out notices and inviting representatives to come to a town hall meeting or community meeting is certainly one of the things that we can do. As far as facilitating options or solutions, we're probably going to look to DOT. We can call a meeting, we can invite DOT, we can agree upon a format. But the DOT would need to facilitate that meeting and pose or propose different solutions and get some sort of reaction to the community. But what you're not going to see the town do is do work on private property. We don't have the resources and we don't have the authority.
I have a question. What's the date of loss? When did this happen?
So your house was just notified to us yesterday.
No, I know when my house started, but when did this down the street start?
The first slide was May of last year. Is that correct? And it was repaired. And since that repair, it's been an ongoing. Yes.
When did it fail the second time?
I'm pretty sure that was in December, right, Gary?
December, January.
December, mid-December, 1st of January.
So date of loss is the second.
We were notified January 2nd.
Yes.
The road had failures.
Okay, so January 2nd was when DOT was notified.
And so that's hot, Tim. So Gary, just to recap, you said that the lake was built in 62? 62. And so the first time there was a slide in the area that was a record was in the 70s, early 70s? Okay.
Well, right quick, I just want to reiterate that DOT's focus would be the roadway. Right now, it's an active slide. It's an active slide, including a private lake. Private lake?
Yes.
Private lake.
It belongs to Roman Ball. Is that not?
Private lake and multiple private properties. Our roadway is part of it as well. The DOT roadway is part of it as well. Just to kind of clarify a couple things, when Jody was talking about the big fix, if you bring in and build a 50-foot high wall and put the tiebacks in, that would be at the right-of-way line. And everything from the right-of-way line to the lake would still be impacted by the slide. Because we would not install, I can't envision a time when we would install the wall in the river or in the lake. So our work would be within that right-of-way area to reestablish the roadway. That doesn't stop it from sliding below that. As you see as y'all saw on the map. What's that?
Would you recommend lowering the level of the lake? You say it's 40 foot deep. Why don't we lower it to 20?
You still have to go to the bottom to start the wall. Yeah. But that still doesn't change what we would do.
Right.
Our focus is the roadway.
Recommendation from the law to mitigate any further losses.
And that would be something that they would need to look at with their consultants. And even if we do, if you do the wall, that doesn't stop it from sliding above and still coming down to the roadway. Like I mentioned before, that we would scoop up and haul off. So, we have to be, I want you to understand, while we want to be a partner with this is well beyond a DOT slope failure. This is a very large geological event that has us caught up in it as well.
So it's outside of process and it's outside of authority in multiple different ways.
My permanent residence is in Charlotte, and I guess my question is there a process that can be put in place to notify the homeowners that were invited to this meeting of significant events or progress or information going forward, or is there someone I should communicate with on a regular basis, or what?
This would be a perfect opportunity for you guys to sign up for our new Everbridge system, and any significant details or anything of importance that needs to get out to the homeowners, I can create a group that's just you guys that just come today, and if you're an affected property, I can send that information directly to you guys. And we'll get that information sent to you if you'll do your sign up with your name and email address at the back table back there. we'll facilitate that and make sure that you get put on that group and get some information to you.
Can we have that posted on the website?
Yes, with the Everbridge system, you'll have the option to receive emails, text messages, emergency notifications, anything to that nature. You can even download an app if you have a smartphone, and it'll send a notification directly to you. And we'll put some more information out about that for you. But if you'll be sure to put your name and email address out there, then we'll get that took care of.
Shane, is there anything that you guys are going to continue to do?
There is one house that I am going to continue to watch. I don't know if the owners were here. I don't know where anybody lives, but it's 117 Village Way. I'm going to monitor yours because of the state just right off the back right corner of your deck or whatever. It had seemed to move since, I think, DOT put those stakes up.
Yeah.
I don't know who put those stakes up.
I think it was DOT.
I'm talking at the house.
Yeah, right off the back.
That's the
Right.
line I put up, and we can talk.
Oh, okay, but that's the one that's on my radar now, just to continue to monitor, and then I'll just kind of keep monitor that way, yes.
Yeah, just one thing to add, we're a public agency, so any of the information that we collect is available upon request. So if you hire consultants or whatever, we're happy to share that. All we need to do is they need to contact us, and so just want to let you know that's an option.
So as I mentioned in the beginning of the meeting, one of the things that the mayor and I will be doing is contacting our representatives at the state and federal level, and try to get those guys educated as to what we're dealing with, the fact that we've met, and that our area town hall could serve as a communication link and a meeting place for future meetings to facilitate communication between those who are affected and those who possibly could do something or help. Is there anything else that guys on the panel would like to add? Frankie?
I don't have
Any last words? Okay, is there any other questions from the audience?
Sorry I was a little late, but has anybody offered an estimate, an educated estimate about how long they think it will take this slide to stabilize?
I worked with the North Carolina Geological Survey.
Use this one.
Yeah, I really don't have an educated estimate, and that really largely depends on the weather and the climate. If we stay in this wet cycle, it's likely to keep moving, and that's the situation that we're facing right now. The best we can do is sort of periodically check on it and monitor it and get some notion of the degree to which it's continuing to move and possibly enlarging. So that it's a bit of a guessing game here.
All right, we don't have any other questions. We'll go ahead and adjourn. Thanks for coming, and we'll try to stay in touch. Please sign up at the back so we can communicate with you about things as we move forward.
Hi. Sure. There was a slide that you put on, mentioned sleeping there and my house is, I'm just like, I'm sorry,
It's fine. Dustin's fine.
how would you read the slide that showed sleeping
Let me see if I can pull it up and tell
That's it. The state shows
This is, Sleeping Bear Lane comes in here.
So, I was wondering if I could get a copy of this. And my next question that I'm very on to was, if the fault is coming down Millsdown and coming this way, they said eventually, after the 70s, it possibly went over here. Are these the lots that don't have to go over those ones that you're concerned about on the other side of the road? Because I live up here.
Well, I tell you, I went all the way down West Tour Drive today, and we walked this whole area today. They wasn't aware of that.
Okay.
But me and some representatives from we walked up on, I didn't see any sign of a crack or a slide or anything. I think a lot of this is, it may be on that fault too, but I think that a lot of this is going to be I don't feel that way, but there's three things we don't ever say that makes you always know. It's just as soon as we say it, we will have it. But a lot of that, like Rick was saying, is going to depend on the amount of water the extended forecast. Thank you, Frank. Just email me your request, firechief@NCDOT.com. I'll mark out those out. Fire chief, but just email me that and request this. Yeah, I can get it as soon as I get back to the office.
Yeah, they're 122 Sleeping Bear.
And we're gonna get all the information that we can from today's meeting. And we're going to put it all in one kit. Okay, so Laura she is going to put together stuff. She's got a communication and so she'll be able to put that stuff together, like minutes, topics we talked about, questions, that sort of stuff.
And that was going to be my last question. Since the meeting was recorded, and maybe it's going to come today, that's the town manager to listen to it.
I don't know. I do know that we're on live feed too, so everybody, they posted it. Some of your neighbors requested that it be on live feed so they could watch it. They wasn't getting it, but they wanted to be able to watch it. Yeah, YouTube on the Nice to meet you, sir. How are you? Just past. The slide, your house is just past the slide. The 26 years. I hope it settles for you and help you buy your for sure. If you need anything, you email us, call us, whatever. Yeah, we'll put it together and get y'all some information. Dan, thank you. Sign off. I just wanted them to get a taste of Big Energy as well as a situation. You guys are going to do your thing. Is it 122? I stopped and talked to their backyard is because that's what me and David said. Yeah, they got the little volleyball nets and the basket. They just cracked them. The red line was a very conservative size of it right now. It's pretty big. Double shot. So I think I might have some boards that's got oh, you did go there?
And I think you know what
The other thing is that
that is a project. Everything that we're putting in right now, we're not doing ourselves.
That I've already done.
So once I get all our information, and I have my guys set up the grill, they know the don't care about how it's last. Keep it working. And I see that. I think this is the next thing.
It's 2:30, it's just like,
I got it. Very enough. We should
Did you put your information? All right, thank you very much. Right now, the water line's already broken. They're supposed to. Amazing job. Look at pictures of chairs. These people ask me about I think Rock Falls is.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, because that can change a long way.
You know me, I was going to introduce myself. I said, we're looking now and trying to decide put in our retaining wall. It's kind of obvious, right?
So thank you.
About 50 feet or something like that. That's
I appreciate it.
That's enough right now. The size machine.
No, I haven't been on the day for 6 months. You're kidding me?
It's always have to know.
How old is your house?
It was built in the 80s.
No, but I mean, have you noticed how they're damaged?
Oh, yeah, this was damaged during Hurricane, subtropical storm Alberta. On my house.
So the foundation is.
Oh, yeah, we got some budget. Yeah, I do see it. Just to do some more holes. It's all that.
Oh, okay, good. I think that is.
No, sure.
I think
I saw a sale. I saw a sale. Yeah, I know. Yes, instead of planning, and then back to the house, burning, and all the way to sit on the main foundation, center pillar, and so there's creates a ground floor.
I'll be honest, I don't have a day.
Oh, I know.
That's amazing.
Yes, we've been writing this. I'm an insurance company. And then we came back and had a GO and it's a collab. Then they came back and said, the rights. So I didn't want this to get in the middle of then that would be what that means. I'm going problem.
I'd like to see one 17. It kind of sits on a plateau. You got the place over here is very visible. Where you can see.
That's why I was asking. This house is not because mine is not built with the land. This progression.
Started by this. If we do that, we do a little share something.
I can put a pro and those got some big three and those I haven't been up there. You need to pressure you make these all my Okay, well, Paul there's Paul.
We're walking around over there, and every tree,
I just drove up to Charles Springs. I had like 30 minutes to go look at that. So, I'm just trying to happen to my friend. I'm back up here and make
when you be careful.
Yeah, I figured maybe, I don't know, what's happening on one side. My neighbor's house, I walked around this first time, my first time.
It's funny, we do disaster.
I don't know.
It took us 2 years. Set up emergency hospital and all that stuff.
But it's a stuff house tomorrow.
I'm going now. So we don't have to do that. I had to do it, take a picture.
Everything has to be well, thank you guys. And
even though we were going to watch this, I believe it don't I'm sorry for all the damage.
now, it's a real tough deal. Now, just have to see retirement. We're selling everything out as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just tired of drugs. Now, I don't know what to
I'm no engineer, but it's really a lot of things that we're saying.
Yeah, well, it's just you talk about the natural
Thank you. How you
Anything other than just in case. That's all that's on my wall.
Yeah.
If you want to go out there, call me, just give me a heads up. Okay. 159 miles an hour.
For decisions.
Get you a little recommendation. These people.
That's it. Thank you for coming.
All this planning and all this.
Something new.
So this was just slide down. I mean, I had yeah, my basement stuff. They got pick the house up. It was cantilever, all the way went down to its pillars. On the main.
Are these properties?
I got about boards from my house to right in the place. There's some good stuff, so you could have up to 8 and 9.
What did they say about your foundation?
My foundation is going to have well, what's happening now, the post is pushing down. They're bearing no weight on that first cantilever pad. They're pushing down and then pushing the first causing pressure.
Make sure you got to open the facts right.
Pushing the dirt down,
Just share the wall. You guys really appreciate it.
I've got to set up this going back to July.
I didn't think so.
No, but see, I don't want that to get in the middle of my insurance company. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I think really is a short.
It's a big version of ours.
That's before I
Well, see, that's why I left all the things. Thank you for having me. I'm driving 400 miles.
Well, yeah, that's why I was asking. You are
Yeah, my house being uninhabitable June of last year. We got a divorce from the previous year. And the insurance company can't deny my claim, but they wrote me on policy this year. And that's the value of the house. They still hear it, and they have the value. Yeah. Can't deny it.
Well, I don't think. Yeah, I'm having a very open conversation now because you're welcome. Ordinarily, I was thinking.
Well, see, that's what I'm trying to do. That's what gives you the baseline of where it ends.
Well, it's just this. It's all around. Along this floor.
Basically, what I've gathered is that it's a very unstable.
So just trying to.
We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how to fix it.
As I said, I can't really give that feeling like. I'm not looking at the side of that side and. You know, that's not.
Yeah. Yeah, my Presentation.
Or it doesn't even really stabilize what's happening without you, right? It just might protect.
We're just like home.
That's your problem, that's your problem.
The damage.
Talkers and meetings all over the morning, we need something to start happening. I feel sorry for us over there, they have all that money, Chalet Road and the Village Road, they're not very well controlled traffic between I'm concerned. But thank you for everything.
And Jim Howell was talking, I wasn't clear if any of their rules have been affected.
I've had two different towns basically out there with a geoengineer, both of them about, well, that's what you don't want to hear. This is interesting. When they look inside,
Can I look at that a little closer? They're 122.
All right, so in order for a bridge to go because I just don't know.
They're worried about the bridge, that would be, you know, go over the slide and plan for that.
And it's not gonna fix the slide, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the driveway that I plug in when I go to Brick House, yeah. Okay, because they park motor right there, and there's their house. So,
I've got the ones that are.
Can we get a copy of this picture?
I shut a phone down.
Right, I just wondered if I could get a copy of this.
I got that from the county. That map that we made, it's a little different from that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would suggest.
Okay, getting there, okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's,
Thank you for the cookies.
And you're welcome.
pretty close.
Think of you tonight when I was sitting there eating. My no car.
I forgot about a gentleman, take care. You know, he had done a red outline of the area, and then there was a red line that was just sitting there by itself. It didn't tie into anything. What did that mean, or was that just a typo?
Oh, I know there's some cracks right here.
And that's what I shared with Dan.
That's the one that they're gonna, he's already ordering the geotesting on his property, right? That's the private property, right?
Well, yeah, I think so. Say that. And then there's some cracks right after that are already. I don't know. That big map, big red outline, there's some dotted good ones, there's cracks there. So that's where the slide's getting.
All right, we need to pray for the rain to stop.
Yeah,
And I never would have thought, that's a hard, yeah, it's a hard
tonight,
thing, right?
right?
But you know, that, and I never thought I'd hear myself saying that, what was it, in 2016? The fire, you know, we were so drought ridden in the parking lot fire, they couldn't control it for a while because it was so hot. So, feast or famine.
So did you need to go?
We'll communicate on email.
Okay.
Sure.
So this sounds so perfectly selfish, and I apologize, but probably I'm not going to be able to drive on this road to my house for 8 months. Would you guess?
Oh, you mean for the Buffalo Creek Road?
Yeah.
If not longer.
So it could be a year before it's really solved.
It could be
If
longer
that.
than
Well,
that.
yeah, and you know, they're still working on the option.
Yeah.
You know, and once they decide what the option is, it's going to take a while.
And then they're gonna have to do something to firm up Chalet and.
Thank you for
Yeah, thank you for
everything. I
everything.
appreciate it.
They're gonna have to to firm up Chalet and Village because it's crumbling.
Did you need this?
No.
This is all mine, isn't it? Good. Okay, thank you.
See you guys.
See you. Thank you very much.
Be in touch with
Okay,
you.
yeah.
Are they all?
Yeah, the blue one. That's one thing. Did you bring any extra batteries?
I hate waiting until the times that you have a meeting.
I'll make myself a note and I'll come do it tomorrow.
Really?
Got to remind me.
We
I just do it with the technology.
This.
No, we'll wait.
Our technology.
This isn't bad, it's the popping and cracking of the wireless
That's what
line.
I'm talking about.
But I found with this one, if you just like get it toward your mouth, it'll speak up in the direction of the mouth.
Well, sir.
Absolutely appreciate you putting it together.
I'm gonna go put this up.
I'm sorry if I did that.
Whose is this? Is this Michelle's? This is Michelle's.
That cone shed, that has a cone shed. So when you're not talking in it, when you're talking in it, and it's not directly at you.
Hey, Laura, have you cut the lot of these? The blue lights are on the camera.
I'll learn to chill when you go in there.
I think you.
I could forget. So seldom that we do this. Wow. I remember you said you had.
Do it right now, I was parking lot. Would you? Just for me.
This on.
I'll turn it off. Maybe put you on park.
I need to put it here.
We
You
can
take that
go.
part.
Say your nursery. We can't manage without. We need a legit thing for you. Frankie said if you're not keeping his, he wants to keep it. He said he likes it better when he has it.
Weird spot. It is.
That's hilarious. I put them all, I figured this group might come back, so I put them all. I told him you probably keep them. Did you see Justin's in there?
I was trying to.
I thought there was one, I thought he had one too. The mic he's cut off, you know?
Trying to get Frankie a point second.
Yes, the projector microphone, yes.
Corner a little bit. Knock him off that high county pedestal.
Did anybody turn the TVs off?
Around Steve Garrett.
No.
I just see you number
I did.
I need to teach you how to do this because there's gonna be meetings I'm not gonna be here.
Well, I did tell him that, I said, the boss is running the bus, just so you know. He's gonna shame that he had you come bring it. That he couldn't handle the heat.
So you did have an official thing in there, cause I didn't see it.
I know I didn't hear, I got it.
I think we need one of, I'm gonna ask Linda to make you one because you're gonna be up there a lot.
Oh, no.
You will be, especially like with things like this going on. But one of us meet next week, maybe.
Now, I got bigger plans when you're governor, Lord. I wanna be the state fire marshal.
Listen, seriously, next week, you think we can do the Everbridge thing?
We need to, yeah.
I know you've got so many problems, but I feel the need to start getting those registered.
So I need to do the Everbridge thing, but here's what happened.
out our day and go do it instead. And I'm picking back up.
That's what happened.
It's what is the name of the unit's problem? He is, I'm sure, he's a better son.
I would have to, relate some of them.
So it's social, but I'm not related to socials, but they're related back to all of them.
Yeah.
They just, the ones I'm related to, the Smith. Shit.
If it's hot, I need it. If it's hot, I need it. Oh, I don't want it.
Oh, yeah, you know it, I do it too.
And I don't provide the next time. Every Monday,
Hey, Dabo! What's in the game call? Who was it? That's the lead. His face was red. He's mad, ain't he? Is he a game call? Yes, sir. Actually, I'm a little confused by him. Because yes, he is a Gamecocks fan, but he can tell you down to the T what Clemson done. Like he is y'all, he studies that. I said, Lee, I feel like you're more of a Clemson fan than you are a Gamecock. Everything you know, he knows who they traded for, like who went to the NFL, who did it, like all the stats. I mean, every year he's like, we might have a shot. We might. It's gonna be a while.
We got the power locked up on that game for a while.
A little while. It's a small little one.
That's right. It'll turn. It'll shift. All you guys need is a
This is a little bit.
former football player coach from Alabama, and you can build you a nice.
Golly.
Marty, want your water?
That's what happened to us. Where did was Denny Ford in Alabama?
I don't know.
Ball player too?
Maybe.
That'd be terrible, wouldn't it? I hope not.
All right, let's go to the next meeting. See y'all.
What about three months?
Dustin promised me he would replace the battery tomorrow. It's not a battery. It's also one that's awfully staticky. Well, so I stayed in a little while, because I want to make sure the recording wasn't working right at first. So to give it a final. Thanks for doing that. I know, I told her I wanted to build a nursery in here. I can't even fathom it. I'm just shaking having this existence. The brain can only retain so much information.
She's afraid that you show her all this.
They'll be here, so it's either going to be you or no one else will be in the meetings.
This calendar.
And I'm not in every meeting, like this one, I just stayed in here.
Is anybody else in that one? Okay.
They know how to, I mean, Kat knows how to do recordings, they know how to do audio recording. I don't think anybody knows how to use a projector or the live stream.
Maybe that'll be. Everyone keeps doing sports, coaches, sports. Maybe it's an election, maybe it's recognizing council. Do something special for the election.
It's a little uncomfortable, like everybody introduces themselves, I mean, at least last week they did.
I thought maybe do lunch and maybe have a guest speaker. You guys want? You want to talk about professional development, you know, just utility entertainment?
You want a bartender?
We'll do something. And I'm like, again, it's Amy's idea, but as soon as you said it, I thought it was the best thing.
This is a lot of extra work.
It is. Some will do it more than we do than others.
Listen, while we're on the subject of entertaining and such, next year, if I'm still here, and y'all have a party, I mean, like, after Michelle, because she might say, we're here, happy, we have to make that Christmas party more fun. That was a real, we gotta line it up. Have people sit together, I mean, that was so awkward.
Our Christmas parties.
It was so
It
awkward.
was
They used
so-
to be good. I mean, they used to be. What happened? What happened? You got it, man, it was just like people were in their,
Scrooge town managers.
they were in these separate tables and we weren't all communicating.
So, most of
Made me
we
feel bad.
had a DJ come, we had dance. Just all.
What, like,
We had country music, we had
like,
R&B music.
the Christmas parties we used to do, like karaoke and, just different things. We don't do, even if we did like one of those, you know, where you get an elephant gift, and, I mean, that livens it up. Take somebody's gift, you know, that, whatever that is. What if we did like, I have an idea for, the clerks, boards? What if we did like, a boat ride tour?
Yeah,
Now that is good.
Yes.
That
Yeah,
is
Chuck
good.
used to do that.
I never got that.
Chuck used to put you on a boat and take you. Chuck would put you on a boat and take you on. Chuck place.
Oh, I've heard that. I gotta go one time.
That was the VIP boat that the council got mad and took away.
Really?
Sold it, yeah. Broke Chuck's place. Right around the lake, I impressed everybody. All right. Thank you very much.
All right, good job. Learn what she lacked. I mean, what do you need? Most of them.
Oh, Shannon, what I was saying earlier, so when we have presentations like that, and someone comes in and they bring their own zip drive, but they don't bring their computer.
Right.
And they hand the zip drive and they say, I need this to show. Our computers will only open a zip drive on the local, it won't open in remote. So on the local, we don't have PowerPoint, we don't have Adobe, we don't have anything.
When you get that changed.
Well, I asked Michael, I texted him, he didn't respond. Can we buy just a license for that laptop?
We need to have a dedicated computer. for it.
Yes, because it wasn't that long ago, Brad had the same issue.
Yeah.
And we were on the phone with IT for like a day, it was ridiculous.
And I hate that more than anything, is to right at the last minute have a
Yeah.
glitch
I
and
know.
have some sort of a audio.
Luckily, Dustin had his laptop and his had, PowerPoint, but,
Cool.
I mean, we've got a laptop we use for presentations that doesn't have Microsoft. It really doesn't.
All right.
Mhm. Laura? Yeah. Are you supposed to keep me cold? Oh, I think it's either way. Yeah, I'm gonna give you tastier. I was gonna eat it today. It's supposed to be a diuretic. Help with my swelling. I didn't either. My Trevor's aunt told me that. So, I'm gonna try it. Do you need anything?